this is the future us. From an hour later that we forgot to say, subscribe this, you freaking beautiful person, you, and like and comment. And we're back into our
Awesome. So this is kind of the last question before we get, to the meat of the interview, which is the Cuba stuff. We just wanted to kind of just talk about, I guess, two things. One is how you got to where you are politically, and like kind of what your politics are. As much as you're kind of comfortable talking about like where you stand politically on what you would identify as ideologically, and then also your channels. So like what your goal is for the channel and kind of how you became a content creator online. So I guess we'll start with the first half. I know we're pretty open Marxist-Leninists. We're both members of the Communist Party USA. I was a member of the DSA for a long time. I was actually affiliated with YDSA when I was at Arizona State University in Phoenix, but I've since left DSA and moved to Communist Party USA, and am now kind of a Marxist-Leninist, and I don't really consider myself a democratic socialist anymore. I'm now pretty much like as far left as one can get, I think, at this point, and full on in the ML camp. And I don't, not to speak for you, Kanan, you can answer yourself. But
pretty much. It's pretty much the same thing for the most part.
Yeah. So can we put that back to you folks? Where you kind of aligned on that?
Sure. I'll go first. There's a lot of factors to how I ended up the way I do, which is weird because with my kind of background, you would think like my kind of background is like I'm Haitian American. Most Haitian Americans are not really socialists or Marxists. Most of them are very much like the capitalist, like entrepreneur type kind of people. Like they very much okay with assimilating the system. So I'm very much like the odd ones out of my family. Pretty much. My dad grew up, I grew up with my dad, always like teaching me about like Haitian politics and stuff like that, the Duvalier, Aristide and stuff like that. And then he was always a big fan of like, Rush Limbaugh and like Jon Stewart and stuff like that. So I would like listen to him talk about those kind of politics. And I remember, like, I think it was like 2012, him and me, we went to go see like a stadium it was like a Tall House Center of, Obama versus Romney, and then we were at the event. We were watching like a screening of it, and I saw a bunch of black people there, and I just saw like the tribalism. Like anytime Mitt Romney was in the screen, they like booed, they like flicked him off, they like said this was the worst motherfucker on the planet and shit like that. So my dad's pretty much like liberal leaning ish, like liberal, like centralist. How I became more radical, I want to say, was during 2020 when George Floyd happened, when COVID happened, when I saw a lot of my family's businesses getting like fucking shut down because of COVID, and they never got like access to like the PPP loans that the government promised them. During 2020, I was living in Atlanta where I went to, what's her name? Do you guys know a rapper who goes by the name No Name? She's a rapper.
No.
She's a very progressive rapper. She has like a book club kind of thing, where she like, yeah, she's a communist. I went to a couple of her book clubs. She kind of introduced me to like Blood in the Eye by George Jackson and like Ashanti and stuff like. No, wait, is it Ashanti? Wait, am I pronouncing the name wrong?
I think it's Ashanti.
It's this book. It's this book. But she had like a book club, and she would introduce me to a bunch of like left leaning, especially black left leaning. That's how I found out who like Kwame Tremaine was and stuff like that. And then I'm always online. Like the reason my content creation, just to give how old I am. I'm 26 years old. I grew up when fucking YouTube happened, so I was always online. Like, I'm a very introverted kid. Like, I watch, like, different content creators blow up. So I always wanted to do that kind of stuff, but with a little more interesting, like, spin to it. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to go to film school. I'm going to make something out of this. And then that's why I saw the protests happening. I was like, okay, this would be, like, a good chance because I'm a big fan of, like, Vice documentaries. I'm a big fan of that guy. His name is Andrew Canahan. He goes by a channel called Channel 5, All Gas No Breaks. Yeah. I'm a big fan of those kind of stuff. So I always wanted to do that kind of stuff. So mixed with my politics, which I wish you could consider me like a Marxist kind of sense. I'm not like an educator. I'm not like an intellect. I haven't read all this stuff. I'm slowly trying my best to get into all of it. But with my politics I have so far mixed with my documentary work, that's pretty much how the page was created. I wanted to showcase a different side of Miami because, Miami is known for like the party scene. It's known for like all the bullshit, like Bitcoin bullshit. shit, which I hate. You know, all the fancy cars and stuff like that, like BBLs and stuff like that. Like, you know, I'm Haitian, and I think like both Savion and Joey can tell, Miami is such a diverse diaspora. Like, there's so many different aspects to Miami that nobody talks about. Like, it's a big Puerto Rican hub, it's a big Haitian hub, it's a big Cuban hub, and all of it,
Basically,
it's
the
getting.
capital of the Caribbean. Like, it's not even
Yeah, it's such
America,
a
thank God.
yeah, it's such a fascinating area, and nobody talks about that shit outside of Florida. Like, you know, most people know Miami is for like the fuckery, like the ignorant stuff, like Florida man and stuff like that, which is cute. But I'm so curious about like what makes like, you know, these people like strive through it any day. Like, there's so much beautiness into it, and that's what I'm trying to capture. You know, these people are like struggling out here, and they don't have the social, they don't have the language to like emphasize with them and to elaborate themselves. So that's why I feel like I come in and be like, okay, let me talk to you and let me try to put your words in a certain way so you know you can get your message more clear. But yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah,
Joey, Savion, where would you folks kind of?
I'm
You want to go
definitely.
first?
Yeah,
Go
I can
ahead.
go.
Not all at once, guys.
I'm definitely a leftist. I mean, I also don't really. I haven't read theory, but I'm Jamaican by birth, and I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I moved here in 2016, like a couple weeks before Donald Trump became the president. Um,
God.
super
Great
great
timing.
timing, right? Like I was truly amazed.
Yeah.
And I realized like, wow, so I'm an immigrant. I can't vote. All of this stuff is happening around me, and there's not really much I can do about it. Um, and I kind of, yeah, I wanted to have more agency where I was. And then I kind of had like this awakening where I realized, because before I moved here, I was very patriotic. I was very much, I very much thought the American dream was real, you know, all the immigrant things. And then it was very quickly shattered before my eyes. So, I realized, wow, it is literally a world evil. Like it's literally, it's a
It's a
scam.
scam.
It literally, they try to control governments. They kill masses of people and have like since the very beginning. Like all of these things just kind of came at me all at once. And then I found myself in like organizing. Um, there's this org here called Florida Rising, which is like a social justice nonprofit. I canvass for them. I learn more about organizing and grassroots politics. And then I realized that electoralism is also a scam. That one really hurt. I was like, damn, I can't even
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
You're well on your way to being a Marxist.
I just-
Yeah. There's
It's
a
just
really funny meme that's like,
Cajole down the line.
yeah, it's like becoming a Marxist is the worst thing you could do to yourself because it's just like every step of the way your life just gets
Truly.
worse and worse
Yeah.
as you realize like all
Is
these things
nothing
and you're just like so
sacred?
depressed all the time. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Unfortunately, not just the eternal wisdom of Marx, I guess.
The drunken man.
Yeah, and also to speak to theory like that. I mean, you know, theory isn't everything. Y'all are in Cuba, like doing the work, right? So like theory is good, and like we, you know, as Marxists, we like will support reading theory, but like that has to be paired with the actual work. And if y'all are in Cuba doing the work, then like, you know, theories will only get you so far. So that's you know, don't feel bad for not reading theory.
Thank you.
Yeah, the action is way more
Action is
important.
more
you.
important. Yeah.
That's the whole
Thank you. I
difference
felt
maker.
better now.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to feel bad at all. Some people don't do anything. Some people are just completely ignorant or blind
Yeah,
to what's
very
going
true.
on.
Yeah, we know we're friends with a lot
I
of
think
people.
the main thing with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and
Yeah, just
My-
I guess
sorry,
just
go
to wrap up. Yeah, or you can go ahead.
Oh no! I thought you were just saying wrapping up. Go ahead.
Yes. I was just saying that like basically through the like after canvassing and talking to people and seeing people in all sorts of conditions in around the city, we started doing the Black Jacobin, and I guess that kind of even further pushed me, like, because we were talking to sex workers and we're talking to, you know, like all different types of people who are also Marxist Leninists, and hearing their perspective has also really radicalized me. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Okay, now it's my turn. So yeah, I guess I gotta start with saying, being born and raised in Miami, half Cuban, half Dominican. My parent, I have a Dominican mom and a Cuban dad, but they're both conservative, and not only being raised in Miami in this culture, but seeing it like firsthand in my family. I was kind of, even though both my parents were conservative, I kind of feel like my first thoughts were like at least liberal, which is interesting because I feel like most people, like, you're born into those kinds of beliefs, um, and you get the whole, like, your first word as a Cuban American is like anti-communism or some shit. Like, I like to joke about that, but I wasn't really like a rabid anti-communist. I just thought it was bad. Move on. Next question, right? Like, um, and then as I grew older, you start developing like anti-liberal sentiments. You're like, who's this fucking Joe Biden, Barack Obama? Barack Obama's a war criminal. What? That kind of thing. And then, like, I guess around in college, I think, because I think most people, like on the left side of America, they're like the social democrat, like liberal. I think social democrats are liberals, but anyways, kind of thing where they're just like, no, no, we can fix capitalism, kind of thing. And I just kind of grew like disheartened with that mindset. Um, and it wasn't until like I had a communist friend in like this like club I was in college, um, who he was a Cuban Chinese communist, and I think I saw some meme or something, and like it like something clicked in my brain because I always questioned like capitalism at a fundamental level. It's more than just billionaires are too rich. Like, why do billion like you have to ask why they exist, and those are the kind of like fundamental questions that you need to understand what capitalism is and how it functions on a root level. And so I asked him like these questions, and he like showed me like some things and like videos or stuff like that. It's hard to start with books. um, but
Yeah.
let me get where I was going there with this. Okay, so, and yeah, like I was literally like from one day to the next, I had no idea that Marx and communism were the things I was looking for this whole time. It's crazy to think of that as like a someone with a Cuban family living in Miami, because you're taught like just forget about those things, or even like fuck those things, like that's evil, like Cuba is a wasteland, blah blah blah. But once it clicked for me in my brain, there was still like some things to develop or like work through. But I was like, no, no, like this is exactly what my mindset has been about this whole time. This is why I've thought capitalism was insufficient, unsustainable, unstable. And so from there, once it clicked, like I just started. I wouldn't say I started reading a lot of books. I have read a few here and there, but just reading a lot, understanding what capitalism is at a fundamental level, understanding how its contradictions lead to a socialist society. From then on, and yeah, since then I've just been a communist, like Marxist Leninist or
Cool.
what have you.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely echo that. I remember reading Communist Manifesto for the first time. I was like really frustrated with a lot of just seeing the world, and just kind of, this was like, I don't know, post just after Trump, and just being really frustrated with like electoral politics, frustrated with capitalism, but not really being able to articulate it and not being able to like express it in any kind of like cohesive way. And then I read Communist Manifesto for the first time in a book that's like 150 years old. It was just like echoing
Exactly.
everything that I was feeling, and I was just like, oh, this is
Exactly.
it. Oh, okay,
It
this is
told
what
you
I've been
everything
missing.
you were.
Like, and it just
Sorry,
like it just
sorry, I didn't
clicked.
mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but it tells you everything you were trying to say.
Oh, no, no, please, please.
Boom. And it's
Yeah,
and the guy
he
was
just said it so well,
born
and I was like, oh
200 years
shit.
ago. It's incredible.
Yeah, so I definitely empathize with what you're saying there. Well, awesome.
Can I ask real quick, how did your parents take
Um,
that?
I actually kept it from them for a while. And then I think I told my dad first because I don't live with him, so I was just like, fuck it, I have more liberty there. We had a political conversation, and I mean I don't want to use negative terms. I'm trying to move past that and use empathy here, but it's he just I don't think he recognizes the flaws in the capitalist system, and he would just like I hate to sound like I'm using like nerdy terms here, but like just poor debate skills, if that makes sense. Like he didn't know he was using fallacies, and he was like showing me like a Washington Post article as evidence. I'm like, who funds Washington Post? First of all,
Who owns that
The
shit?
Department of
Yeah,
Defense
so
funds it. Yeah.
I don't know. It's owned by Bezos.
Yeah,
It's owned by
yeah,
Bezos. It's
yeah,
owned
yeah,
by the
yeah.
Department of Defense. Yeah.
And then I think we were like texting on and off for like less than a week. He blocked me for 4 months. So,
Damn.
eh,
My
he,
God.
yeah, and I mean, we weren't amazing beforehand because of other shit. Um, but then we were like he unblocked me, like we kind of like barely, and then some shit with actually Palestine came up, and he's like, how can you say queers for Palestine? Isn't that ironic? And I was like, no, not really. And then that argument,
Mm.
whole other thing. Now he blocked me again. And actually, that's for a third argument this time. So yeah, but that's off the communism talk. So with my mom and my stepdad, I live with my parents. I think I kind of just wanted to be more open about my politics on Instagram. I don't want to like. I know social media is bad, and it's like funded by like huge corporations and stuff like that. But insofar as I use it to connect with other people and I use it to like spread propaganda, right? I think it's a pretty useful tool. I think I've had interesting conversations and I've shown people a lot of cool things and vice versa. I've learned a lot from like social media and even like TikTok too. Like, obviously you can't be fucking doom scrolling, but there's information there that you're not gonna get, like plain on the web. Whether it's the filtering system or the algorithm, right? So I wanted to just be more open with that, and I told my parents, and they kind of like shoved it off in a weird way. They're not fans. My mom and my stepdad, they thought it was just a phase. They were like, "Well, we don't agree with it, but we're not gonna argue with you about it." Um, and yeah, my stepdad is Cuban as well, so he has his own like knee-jerk reactions to communism and like Cuban support as well. And I just came back from that, which was a whole another thing with them as well.
Yeah, that's crazy. No, I grew up in my parents are from Bosnia, so they grew up in Yugoslavia. So they kind of grew up in a socialist system. And I mean, I was always a lefty, but like as I started getting older and older, I just kept spouting like communist shit. And they consider themselves socialists, but the more and more I started talking, the more and more they started agreeing with me, and then I could see like all of my ideas and my reflections, they start changing their mind. And they're like, yeah, this place is a fucking shithole. Like you, and I luckily I got them to kind of like sway toward just outright calling themselves socialists. So that's
cool.
nice.
You radicalized
That's
your parents.
cool.
Yeah, I radicalized my
That's
parents.
cool. I think that's pretty rare. I haven't spoken to my mom in a long time because she's like a hardcore like QAnon Trumper flat earther. So I'm like,
I'll
I
just
tried having conversations with her, but I just
if there's one thing I can interject, I just recently had a fight with a friend of mine. I've been friends with like almost 4 years now about Cuba, because his girlfriend's Cuban and he's a big like entrepreneurial type of dude. He's a Bahamian guy. He has like a whole like business. He's a business savvy type of dude. And when I explained about Cuba and about all the good things about Cuba, he's like, "Oh, how can you like support this and that with all the horrible stuff that like Castro did and stuff like that?" And then the conversation went from that to "Oh, one day I want to be as big as like Jeff Bezos and stuff like that." And I explained to him like, "You're not gonna be rich as Jeff Bezos," and he got offended by that shit. So like he was like, "Get out of my house." So he was I'm gonna say this.
Oh my
Yeah. So
god.
I will say, like, when Joey with the stuff with him and his dad, like, I've had multiple arguments with like people, about like the horribleness of this country, the flawed system and stuff like that. And I've literally like told people to get on my face or, you know, block me on social media and stuff like that. Personal family members and friends of mine. So I could get that sentiment of like, you know, some people are still very much like brainwashed by the propaganda of this country.
Yeah. In Miami, you lose friends being a communist. I mean, in general, anywhere, but in Miami especially. I mean, like I got a lot of backlash for my support for my politics.
And do you think that's just because like it's just that? I mean, that anti-Cuban communism specifically, not anti-Cuban, but there's that anti-communist like from the Cuban history and just that kind of Cuban trauma. Is that what fuels that, you think, of just like, because I think you're right. I think Miami and South Florida in particular is just like so much more anti-communist than like the other
Yeah, because
anti-communists.
the
They're like,
island's
they
right
hate
there.
it.
So like a lot of them literally like, you know, what was the boat? You know, Joey, what was the boat that during the 80s that came here?
My grandpa was on that actually.
What was it called?
Yeah, it was a Mariel boat lift.
Yeah, like I have friends whose family members were personally affected by this kind of stuff. So like I can see like they just been taught since a young child to like think a certain type of way, don't question it, because the thing is, and the sucky part about it is we're not talking about like conservative Cubans. We're talking about people who are pretty left leaning. Like people on my channel, like the people who've been following me for like years, they all like hate Zionism, they all against America. But the minute I bring Cuban politics in it, they're like, oh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're an idiot. Oh, you actually support Zionism. Like, what the fuck?